Hey everyone, this was a really fun open air build. It's actually my first ever open air build, and it's a 3D printed case called Minilith Alpha from a really talented designer in Serbia, and I'm actually really impressed because it's a really cleverly designed case. I did, however, have a bunch of issues along the way when building in it, but mainly that's because I'm a complete idiot, to be honest. Oh wait, it's too short. No! Oh no. Oh no. I've gone through. No, wait, does this... Oh, is this for ATX? Oh, I think it might be. I haven't even checked that. Part of the reason I had issues though, other than me being a bit of a noob, is that there were no instructions with this because it's a prototype case, and actually I just YOLO'd things up based on some pictures I actually looked at on Instagram. Enter Showcases. This is the person behind these designs and the particular case that got sent to me, and basically they posted loads of pictures on Reddit and then announced they were doing a giveaway, and me and a few other people entered it, and I was one of the people selected. So all the way from Serbia I got this brilliant box full of 3D printed parts and loads of bubble wrap, and very well packaged, to be honest. But basically, yeah, I was looking at this thinking, what the heck, how am I actually gonna, connect this all together? But there were screws and things like that, which is impressive, and they were working USBs and a working power button and my channel logo, because this is a customizable case, which is a very neat touch. But somehow I had to go from those pieces to this, the final built case. So what I did was I got my laptop and I got going. So I need feet somewhere, so it must be, these are the feet. And then I screw it in, do I? No, wait. So the PSU is gonna go in there, is it? But I can't screw that in. How do I screw that in? With the screw holes, they right by my finger. I genuinely don't know how I missed that. Okay. PSU is going to go in there, which means I need to build something for the motherboard. That is the graphics card holder? No. Right, that is the motherboard holder with the standoffs. So the standoffs go that side. So that must click in there, which it does. Yes, it's like Lego. Right, so that goes in there. That's quite wobbly, but I'm hoping we can reinforce that. With screws, I genuinely don't know why I thought I was just doomed to have a wobbly case. But either way, this is still a 3D prototype case, and there are bits that are, cable tied together, as you can see on the screen now. So that's the GPU holder, although as I find out later, there are screws for added stability. Okay, that must be that. That looks like it fits in together. So screw in there. Oh no, oh no, I've gone through. Oh no. So with that failure under my belt, I decided to move on to even more failure by actually cable tying the GPU holder in place. Oh wait, it's too short. No! Luckily though, I finally realized something. Oh, I can screw that in. I should just screw that in. Right, that was silly of me. Simple, look at that. Now we're flying. Okay, that's not coming off. Now that I've finally done that properly, I can move on to the GPU. This is fun. Right, so that's gonna be like that. Luckily, at this point, it dawned on me there's a screw hole that I can screw into. Yay! So that helped a lot with stability, but then I used these cable ties just for even more stability. This is then a GPU support brace, and I'm only left with 2 random pieces then. Yes! Okay, so that is now starting to look like the pictures. So I'm basically looking like that. Oh, right, okay, that's a GPU holder. Right, I understand. So I need to get the longest screws, but that is the case. So graphics card, motherboard, cable management, PSU, and obviously you've got a lot of space there to actually hide the cables. So that is the Minilith. Looks pretty awesome. So overall, I think this is actually a really clever design. The fact this was 3D printed and designed by just one person is absolutely impressive, so credit to them, to be honest. But next I wanted to actually do a build in this case, so you can see how easy or hard it actually is. So luckily I already had a mini ITX build with an X870i motherboard and the CPU and the CPU cooler and the RAM. I'll put the specs on the screen now. So I simply lifted that out of my old Corsair 2000D case. Then I came over to the new case, the Minilith Alpha, and I put in the 3 motherboard standoffs. And you might have realized that actually motherboards need at least 4, so what gives? Well actually if we look at this you can see that while there is a motherboard standoff on the case, there's a massive giant gap. And I looked at all the pictures and I don't think I've done something wrong. I think actually this is by design, but actually, you know, I wasn't willing to just skip that standoff completely, especially since the GPU is gonna go there. But luckily on a previous build, I actually had nylon spacers that you can screw together and actually come up with your own motherboard standoffs. So as a result, I used them, which was a little bit janky at first, but actually the final effect did support the motherboard, which is brilliant. Look at that, that is absolutely terrible. It's like the Great Leaning Tower of Pisa, but it's all solid. There's no movement or anything. So that's 4 standoffs in and it works, sort of. That's brilliant. Next up is gonna be the power supply unit, where everything's gonna be facing upwards. Oh, it's got notches. Look at that. That is brilliant. Yes, it's got notches, so it should slide in. No? Well, maybe it supports ATX, I don't know. Oh, I think it might be. I haven't even checked that. I've got a Montec PSU upstairs. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go get that, aren't I?
A few moments later.
Montec for the win. Come on. If you don't fit, then I'm gonna cry. Famous last words. This should fit. Wait. Yeah. What am I doing wrong? Oh, this is ATX. It doesn't... Oh. No, it's gonna... Oh, no. It's gonna be small form... Oh. Which one's this? This is small form factor... X. Was it L? There's 3 different types anyway. Yeah, small form factor. Oh, it's the other one, isn't it? So I just shove this under there. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it loose for now. But that's my fault for having the wrong power supply. Ah, there we are. That is balancing now. That's balancing. I need to put something under there. Coasters. This is professional. This is a professional build. Right, so let's turn that round. Okay, so let's assume my power supply unit fit, which it didn't because I didn't buy the right one because I wasn't prepared. There we are, saved by the cat coasters. Excellent. So with that disaster professionally averted, it was time to actually fit the graphics card, which meant temporarily removing the top bracket. Scary, very scary. Oh, it clicks in there, that's brilliant. There's little notches. I like that, that is epic. I was wondering what they're for. That is so clever. Right, so it's gonna go in like this. Oh, this is scary. I'm gonna hold underneath. Can I hold underneath? No, I don't need to. I've got my amazing standoffs there. So go in. Yes, yes, yes. Did that go? Did that latch? I think so. Next up, I put in the bottom brace to support the GPU, which is a really neat idea actually. And then screw my GPU onto there. I got all my ports facing upwards, which is very, very clever. So I'm just gonna screw this in, which meant I could put the top bracket back, and this is actually like the I/O plate that you would attach your graphics card to and then screw into, and actually this is pretty sturdy. I know things are moving around quite a lot, but the GPU did feel quite supported. So next up then was actually plugging in all the power supply cables, so the CPU one, and the CPU fan, and the front panel headers, and all the rest of the cables too. Okay, so what I should be able to do now is turn this on. I'm so cool. At this point I wanted to put it back on my desk so I could test things properly. What's moving around? Oh, what's moving around? Ah! Oh, whoa. That was there all along. Oh, I'm glad something didn't short. Whoops. Polly? Do you like the Minilith case? Do you? Yeah, I talk to my cat like a baby. Right, okay, so let's move on. That is one mighty fine looking case. Although, your cat hair might not be good against that, so try not to brush against it, okay? Yes. Oh god, it's summer, you're molting. So that's done, and it looks pretty good in my opinion, and I like the fact that all the I/O is at the top, because in my other case, the Corsair 2000D, all the I/O is facing downward, which is nice from a cable management perspective, but it's also a bit of a pain at times, because you've got to actually lift the case to plug the cables in, which gets annoying. But that's all built, but obviously it's an open air case, so how did the actual thermals perform? Let's take a look. And the way I did that was in both the old case and the new case, I run some stress tests like Prime 95, which hammers the CPU, but it's also good to keep track of the GPU temps when this is running. And I also run Thermark, which is a GPU stress tester, but again, I kept track of the CPU temps. And with both tests in both cases, I made sure that the ambient temperatures were the same. And when we actually come to the results, unfortunately, it wasn't pretty. The Minilith Alpha was worse across the board. Not so much with the GPU, but I felt that the CPU was even worse. And actually I think this is because, you know, there just wasn't that movement of air whatsoever. Like some open air cases do have little fan slots and things like that, but this particular case doesn't have that, unfortunately. So not good. And that kind of makes sense because there's nothing to actually move the air. And also my graphics card is a small form factor graphics card, so the cooling's not going to be as good as if you had a really thick chonky boy one. Equally, my CPU cooler is pretty good, but it's not really the best compared to something like the Noctua NHD15 with 2 fans and things. That's probably going to cool things a lot more. But overall, I am really impressed by this. I probably won't use it as my main case because I got kids and cats and I don't really want, you know, my kids poking it while it's running or, you know, cat hair getting in it and things like that. But if you've got a situation where an open build would make sense, then actually this is a really impressive case. And actually I could imagine myself using this for like an NVMe NAS or something like that. For example, I could get a 4-way NVMe PCI Express expansion card, plug that in there and probably actually skip the GPU bit altogether, just have integrated graphics off the CPU. And actually that could be quite a good way of doing things. So I could, you know, I might tinker with this in the future because it is pretty cool. But of course, nothing is perfect. And in addition to the thermals, there are going to be some issues with this case. And I need to be careful because this is a prototype. I'm not just going to bash it for, you know, YouTube entertainment's sake. It is actually an overall very clever case. However, one of the things that was slightly annoying is that I couldn't access the back NVMe drive, and they are very, very common to have on mini ITX motherboards. So this particular one is the Aorus X870i Pro Ice, and yeah, I just couldn't access the back NVMe drive. So that is something to be aware of, but that's about it really. I mean, this is a prototype designed by one person, and I think it is really freaking impressive because actually, you know, I couldn't design something like this. So, you know, hats off to the designer. You've done an absolutely brilliant job. It was really, really fun to build in this particular case. So that wraps up my overall views. This is the Minilith Alpha case from Showcases, and I'll put all the links in the description because at the time of filming, you can't actually purchase this because it's still undergoing design refinements and things like that. But when it is available, you know, I'll put a pinned comment just to update you all. And overall, I think this is a really impressive case. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts though, so let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please click the thumbs up button and please subscribe to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching.